Pass this around. Thank you.
I told Deborah. Did you say Deborah? I'm planning to go. It's okay if you did. Sorry, Jojo.
Dvorah is one of the names of all the Jewish people called Dvorah. Shoshana, Dvorah, some names involve all Jews. Baruch atov Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nehenu b'Dvorah.
What did you say? Is that an extra? I don't know. Maybe that's an extra.
It's one sheet, one sheet.
Can we not have this? I feel like at the Mashiach Seder by the Seder, I feel like I should come to you.
No, this isn't the wrong here. It's a mistake. Oops.
New Square is its own branch.
What?
New Square is its own branch.
New Square is a city where Square Chassidic live.
They're called
Square Chassidic. It's a name from Ukraine, or White Russia.
yeah. That's where that's what they're yeah. But I thought that New Square just like sounded like a nice name for a town. I didn't know it comes from
They mean by the word New Square, that's not the square in Europe, it's the New Square.
yeah.
Okay, so continuation from our class. Mazel tov, Rivka. When you draw lots and someone wins something, it's min hashamayim. That's what it says, that all drawing of lots is a heavenly thing. So a big schus. Okay. I don't know if someone explained what that dollar is, but the Rebbe used to give dollars when it was Machon Chana. The Rebbe gave dollars for every student that studied that year, $1. And the person who gave that $1, she was a student, and that's the $1 she got at the end of the year, studying in the school. Yeah. So this is a continuation of Chassidic way of life. Now, what I want to go into briefly, at least a little bit, is what are some of the things, like Chassidic way of life, we have much more in common with every other Jew who keeps Torah mitzvahs than we have. It's not, in common. So everyone keeps Shabbos and everything, keeps mitzvahs and everything. Everybody does the same Torah and the same mitzvahs. Shabbos and Pesach and Shavuos and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and all the other laws. So naturally, we're talking about customs, different ways, a little bit of a different focus. But here are some of the things that I'm going to point out, which is not necessarily Chabad. Again, all these things are not Chabad, all Hasidic groups. In this way, this is one of the things that are different between Hasidim and others. What? This is not only Chabad, this is all Hasidim. Yeah. Now, on the bottom of the page, it says the word general, then it says beyond the letter of the law. So that's a little bit of an introduction to this list. In general, the word chassid, we had a class on this, but I'm going to review this part, that the word chassid is not a new word. The word chassid is found not only in Gemara, it's already found in Tillim. David HaMelech said, Shomra nafshi, Hashem, protect me, ki chassid ani, because I'm a chassid. So David HaMelech refers to himself as a chassid. The Gemara uses the term chassid. What is the difference between chassid? What kind of term is it? Or someone who's a tzaddik, is righteous. So generally speaking, the term chassid means someone who goes beyond the letter of the law. Someone who fulfills and observes Torah and does everything that you're supposed to do, is definitely a righteous person. But the term chassid is when you do more than what you're obligated and expected to do according to halacha. That's the term chassid. So the things we're going to talk about here are things that you can be a perfectly religious, 100% from Jew without it, but this is going beyond the letter of the law. And we'll point out a little bit why these things. So first of all, does anyone remember what we spoke about? Like, why do Chassidim go beyond the letter of the law? It's hard enough to keep all the halachas and keep all the dinim. There's so many details, just what's required according to halacha. So why make life even more difficult and take on more things beyond the letter of the law? What is it? Where does that come from? What's the psychological problem these people have? Yeah.
Because anything that you love and that you cherish, you're gonna not just want to do the baseline. You want to go.
Right. Very good. So yeah.
Does it also go with the parsha of like the making a boundary out of boundaries, or is that different? Like you're gonna create a barrier around the boundary, so you're gonna like make sure that you, I guess, protect.
It's also part of it, right? So first of all, that itself is a halacha already, but that is more like and stay one who's that person fell off a cliff, God forbid. Why? Because they were standing next to the cliff and they were sure they're going to be okay. And they look over, and then the next thing you know, there's a tragedy. So in order to avoid that, stay even further away. And so it's a matter of caution, extra precaution. Here we're giving a different reason. It's not just extra precaution. More to be held back, to limit yourself. So when you love a person, you don't calculate and look up in a book somewhere. So how much am I obligated to do for this person? Oh, only one time. Okay, that's fine. It's something which you do, with all your heart and soul. Being at Chassidus, from this explained, Chassidus is all about developing a deeper emotional bond with Hashem, which means focusing on the love for Hashem and the emotional connection to Hashem. So when you're focused on that, automatically that generates the feeling that you want to do more than what you require according to Allah. In fact, we pointed out in class that when you love someone, what expresses the true love, not when you do those things that you're expected to do, that's when you do those things that are beyond your expectations. And things that you're not obligated to do. So here's one of the things that I would say is the difference between Chassidic circles and non-Chassidic circles, and that is negel vaser near the bed. So when we wake up in the morning, every Jew follows Shulchan Aruch, washes their hands, and that's called negel vaser because it's supposed to wash the hand from the wrist, and it's mainly to get impurity of the fingers, of the nails. So in Yiddish, it's negel vaser. But the halacha is that you're allowed to walk 4 cubits without washing your hand. In Chassidic circles, our custom is we don't even get out of bed without washing our hands. So we have negel vaser near the bed, and you don't go out of bed before you wash your hands. But someone says negel vaser near the bed, so the floor gets wet, the carpet gets wet. I don't know if it's a good idea. I'd rather walk. Why are Chassidim more into it than everybody else? What's the difference? Why this particular custom? What?
We like the thrill of getting up in the middle of the night, not knowing if you're gonna spill it or not. Like a roller coaster.
Makes you up easier when you accidentally step into it.
Exactly. It shows that you're not even, you're allowed to walk alone. We're not even gonna walk anything. We're gonna still be in bed when we watch.
Why? So why Chassidim? It's just to go beyond the letter of the law. But still, why this mitzvah? What?
We go sleep with a mitzvah already.
That's also true. In fact, I think when people wrote the Rebbe about nightmares and things like that, the Rebbe would say to check the mezuzah. And I think one of the things also is to make sure there's negel vaser near the bed. So I guess it's also something that you're observing, which is Torah, and that has a protection on the person. Yeah.
Isn't Nagavasa like you're washing your hands to like start your day in service of Hashem? So it's like we're gonna start right away. Like we're not gonna take a step. Like every step is in service of Hashem.
That could also be part of it, right? But I think there's two parts. And we wash our hands a second time after we get up and get dressed. What the second time? I think the second time is more the washing and service of Hashem. The first time is to wash away the impurity that's on the body. So again, I'll tell you what I think why by Chassidim there's more of an emphasis on this is because without Chassidus, you focus more on the practical, technical do's and don'ts. Remember, we spoke about that. Gotta do this, don't do that. That's the focus. And to know precisely what's right to do. And people argue about the halachas. Is this required? Is it not required? Do you do it this way? Is this the measurement? Is it a kazayis? Is it not a kazayis? All things are important, but you're focused on the mechanics of things. In Chassidus, we're focused on the spirituality of things. And therefore, the impurity is like the most important thing that I really want to get away because it's not just about doing what's right and what's wrong. I want to be able to feel godliness and to sense godliness. And having unholiness on me, impurity on me, interferes with sensing godliness. In fact, they tell the story that once someone came to a chassid and said, it says that when you don't wash your hands, negavasar, there's impurity on your hands. I haven't washed negavasar for who knows how many years, and I don't feel any impurity. So he said, that is the impurity. If you don't feel the impurity, that's, in other words, impurity makes you lose your sensitivity to godliness. When a person is numb, God forbid, you don't feel anything soothing on your hand, but you also won't feel anything cutting your hand. When you go to a doctor, you go to a dentist, and they give you anesthesia, they're cutting, they're drilling, you don't feel any pain. So spiritually, when a person loses their sensitivity to godliness, they don't feel the pleasure of godliness, but they also don't feel that there's something that's the opposite of godliness because they became desensitized. So impurity makes you desensitized. In fact, there was someone called Moses Mendelssohn. He was the one who established the Reform movement, Enlightenment movement. And this person was a religious Jew. When I say religious Jew, I mean that he davened 3 times a day, kept Shabbos, kept kosher. Someone told me he read it in a book that describes his life, that he would even be at a meeting with German dignitaries and would stop the meeting and say, excuse me, I have to go daven mincha. Could you imagine? He kept the technicalities, the mechanics of Yiddishkeit, but it was very far from the spirituality of Yiddishkeit. And eventually, he felt very strongly Jews have to be more assimilated and be more like the secular world. And eventually that's what led to total assimilation. But they say that what led to him becoming so far away from Judaism that I think 4 or 5 of his sons all converted to Christianity was that he used to drink the negavasa.
What?
In those days, you didn't turn on the sink, you didn't turn on his faucet and water came. You had to go to a well, draw water and bring it. When you wash your hands, it's not dirty. My hands are clean. It's just some sort of a spiritual washing. So why schlep and throw out this water? It's good water. He used to use it for drinking. But why? Because he didn't believe in this spirituality, some impurities. It was no kind of impurity. He didn't believe in these spiritual things. To him, this was like fairy tales. So if by drinking this water, which is impure, it brought impurity into his mind and into the way he lived. I once heard a story that there was someone who was I think he became a convert to Judaism, and the story behind it was that there was once a priest that had either these were Jewish children that became orphans, and somehow or other they had them under their jurisdiction. And of course, they were trying to get the Jewish children to leave go Judaism and and they were having a hard time. The kids were holding on. So he told one of the younger priests, you know what, do? When they wash their hands in the morning, try to get them to drink that water. that's going to help them let go of Judaism and become more Christian. So the young priest said, so you do believe there's something to Judaism and to the spirituality. And that made him get involved in Judaism, and he became a Jewish convert. But this was sort of the accepted thing, that without Negavas you don't move, because we're extremely cautious with impurity, because we're extremely cautious. We're not just doing the mitzvahs, but to develop the sensitivity to godliness. They tell the story that there was a grandfather once walking with his grandson, and they passed by a building that on every window there were bars. Today it's normal. I guess in those days it wasn't normal. So he asked his father, why bars? His father says, it's a jail. So they put bars on the windows that people shouldn't escape. So the little boy says to his father, so why do they have to put bars there? Let them just take away the negavasa. They can't escape. Without negavasa, they won't go anywhere.
What do you do in a situation where you forget to go up? Like, I just like
Stand
walk.
up, you stand up.
No, but like, I'm saying like, I don't know, I guess maybe that's.
Yeah, if
Stop, Robert. Yeah.
if you can call someone to come from Honolulu back here and do the negavasa, you're fine. If you can't, you just get up and you have no choice. You have no choice. Right.
Like, do the floors left.
Okay, another thing. Another thing is eating before davening. Before davening, we don't have any meals, but usually especially say Shabbos, when you're davening late, you bite into something, you drink a coffee. And the reason is that you want to be able to concentrate more on your davening. Truly, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch, it actually says that you're not allowed to do anything personal before you daven. Again, this applies more to men than to women. Women don't have the same obligation as men. But for men, you really are not allowed to do personal things before davening. And therefore, you shouldn't even be allowed to eat before davening. On what basis do Chassidim do it? Because there's a halacha that if a person, for example, is very weak, or a person traveled and they're exhausted, and therefore they won't be able to concentrate on davening, the halacha is not only they're allowed to eat before davening, they shouldn't daven without eating. And the reason is because then they won't be able to concentrate on the davening. So on that basis, Chassidim eat before davening. You all probably know the famous quote from Rebbetzin Rivka, one of the Rebbetzins of Chabad, the wife of the Rebbe Marash. Not her quote, but the quote of Tzemach Tzedek to her, where he said it's better to daven, better to eat in order to daven than to daven in order to eat. In other words, if I haven't eaten and I'm hungry, and I'm davening with the intention, I hope I finish soon so I can go eat, then my davening is not really a pure davening. So it's better to eat first with the intention, so I'm eating in order to daven, and that's better. But still, so why doesn't everybody follow that? So the answer to that is, again, based on what we learned that why is it that by Chassidim, davening is sort of considered the most major part of serving Hashem, almost more than anything else. Why davening? And we answered that because the whole purpose of Chassidus is to develop a deeper emotional bond with Hashem. Which mitzvah is it that's designed to develop a deeper emotional bond with Hashem? That's davening. Remember, we learned about the fact that davening is a mitzvah, and yet there's no place in the Chumash where it says, and you should daven. It doesn't say it in English and doesn't say it in Hebrew. Nowhere in the Chumash. So anyone remember where is the source that you should daven? No, it's in the Chumash. Yes, you're right. No, you said, it says you should serve Hashem with all your heart. And the Gemara says, how do you serve Hashem with your heart? Which service is that? That's davening. In other words, the idea of davening is not just asking Hashem for my needs. That's the time in the day when I'm supposed to generate a love and an emotional bond with Hashem. And once you have an emotional bond with Hashem, then everything of the day will be different. All the things you do will be different because you love Hashem, and that's the source for all the mitzvahs, and not to do the opposite. So therefore, davening by Chassidim is sort of the cornerstone, is the foundation. It's like the backbone that everything depends on the davening. That's how they will go spiritually. So because davening is so essential to us, in other places, the most essential thing is more the learning. Yes, you daven, it's an obligation, you have to daven, but what's most essential is the learning. And the davening is sort of is I wouldn't say chas v'shalom by the way, but not so much emphasis was put into the davening. And by Chassidim, tremendous amount of emphasis, time, and energy was put into the avodah of davening. So because for us, davening is so major, we look at davening, it will determine what everything in Yiddishkeit will look like. Therefore, we do eat before davening, so that will enable us to daven better. So that this takes precedence over not eating before davening, because the davening actually will be enhanced by my eating, and the eating is part of serving Hashem. And again, there might be even Chassidim that are not so much into this, but in general, Chassidim do drink or eat something before davening for this reason, because the davening is so critical, and this will enhance davening. The third thing is men going to the mikveh before davening. So again, for a woman, mikveh has to do with a mitzvah, with an obligation. For men, there's no obligation, but the Chassidic custom is that men go to the mikveh every day before davening. The Baal Shem Tov, for example, in those days, they didn't have mikvahs like we have today in a building, and it's warm water. They would go to the river, and very often the Baal Shem Tov would go in Russian or the Ukraine, where Baal Shem Tov lived. These rivers froze in the winter. So they had to break the ice and go into freezing cold water. And it wasn't such a simple thing. And yet the Baal Shem Tov instituted that men should go to the mikveh before the davening. And what's the purpose of mikveh? So when you're dealing with mikveh in halacha, so we know it's halacha that a woman needs to go to mikveh to be pure, to be able to be with her husband, or the other things we learn about in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, you weren't allowed. It was a very severe consequence if a person went into a holy place like the Beis Hamikdash and they were impure because they were in contact with a dead body, or because they had leprosy, or they touched something that was impure. But we're not talking about halacha here. We're talking about additional purification. Now, where do we see that mikveh can also serve as additional purification? So one of the examples is on Yom Kippur. Does anyone know, in fact, what are we learning this week? The Pasha this once he went to the mikveh the first time, he's not having any contact with anything that's not holy. So why is he going a second time? And not only that, a third time, a fourth time, and a fifth time. What do we see from this? That even though the person's already pure and there's no issues with halachic purification, but this is, for him it's an obligation, by the way, but this is because it's Yom Kippur and it's the Beis Hamikdash, and he's going into the Holy of Holies, it's an additional purification and an additional purification. I guess when you study Chassidus, we can understand that the first level of purification is to allow my nefesh to be able to surface. The second time is to allow my ruach to be able to surface. The third time allows my neshama to surface. The fourth time, chaya. And the fifth time, yechida. There are 5 levels to the soul. And every time he immersed in the mikveh, it allowed another part of the neshama to surface. It sort of refined another, more transparent, how my neshama was able to come out more. So we see that going to the mikveh, it purifies the person. So it's again the same thing. Purification, it's not about doing something which is kosher or doing something which is not kosher. Purification means more holiness, more godliness. When I'm davening, I say, Baruch Atah Hashem, to feel godliness in those words, to feel godliness when I do a mitzvah. A man should feel godliness when he puts on his talis, to feel godliness when he puts on his tefillin, to feel godliness when he makes a bracha. And to feel godliness, going to the mikveh is purifies a person, means it makes a person spiritually more sensitive. And that's our goal in all these things, which we'll see more things. It's there to, our whole goal is to develop a deeper emotional bond with Hashem. I think you might remember we said there are three things that fall into the category of what Chassidus wants to accomplish. When we talk about the soul of Judaism, what are the three things? Love and fear of Hashem. The other one is belief in Hashem. And the third one is what? No, these are the three: love, fear, and belief in Hashem. In other words, this is the emotional bond we're talking about. So because it's something spiritual, the mikveh is something which makes a person more spiritual and allows a person to be more sensitive to spirituality. Because really, when you do a mitzvah, the mitzvah itself should really send you flying through the roof. Ever have that? If you did a mitzvah and you felt like just shooting up through the roof. You're so excited about the mitzvah. If you're excited about the mitzvah, it means you're sensing the godliness in it. It's like the certain pleasure a person can feel on Shabbos, on a Yontiv. That excitement means I'm sensing in some level, some degree, I'm sensing godliness. So therefore, in Dafka, specifically in the way of Chassidus, there's more of an emphasis on sensing the godliness. So therefore, there's the mikveh. Now, some people find it difficult during the week, so they'll make an effort at least before Shabbos. Before Yontif, more people will go because in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, everybody had to purify themselves because they went to the Beis Hamikdash. And you can't go to, if whoever was in Israel knows that one of the things they find that are buried all the way in the area of Yerushalayim are mikvahs. They find ancient mikvahs. If you ever went there and you saw what the people who are digging, what they find, a lot of mikvahs, because on the way to Yerushalayim, everybody had to purify themselves before they can go into the Beis Hamikdash. So there's certain people, they don't do it every day, they can't do it on Shabbos, but at least before Yontif. But the general custom of most Chassidim, again, there's not Chabad, all Chassidim will make an effort to do this even every single day before davening.
How would it be to go to Nissan on Shabbos?
So the truth is there was some controversy about that, especially those who were against Chassidim. They argued that not, especially if the hair gets wet and you're squeezing out the water when you dry yourself, so there might be a question of schita, it's a malacham. There is a whole, there are different rulings from different rabbanim on the fact why it's permissible. It's dealt with. I know I'm not giving you the answer, but as long as I'm telling you that other people worried about it, you already could feel better. They'll worry for you. Like I told somebody today that this kid was sitting with his grandfather, and every time he got up, it was like, he sat down, he started to walk. So the grandchild said, Zaidi, I'll say oi for you, and you can get up without all the. So now that you know that there's some rabbis worried about it, we can be calm. But being that it's a good question, I'm going to see if I'll have a chance to look it up a little bit and find out exactly what's the question and what's the answer. Because we don't take showers or baths on Shabbos. So this is different. Number 4, we'll need more time to talk about this. I want to explain that a little bit more detail. But another thing which, again, Chassidim do is wear 2 pairs of tefillin. Again, all Chassidim, but there are different customs. There's some Chassidim that they only begin to wear 2 pairs of tefillin after they're 40. Some Chassidim begin to wear 2 pairs of tefillin only after they're married. Some Chassidim begin to wear 2 pairs of tefillin after they're 18. What's the custom in Lubavitch? You're right, but it wasn't always that custom. Until 1976, in Chabad, we wore the tefillin, which is called the second pair of tefillin, Rabbeinu Tam. We started that at 18. One year, it was 1976, it was Purim, and the Rebbe spoke about the subject and said, now the time has come that even boys that are bar mitzvah should start wearing 2 pairs of tefillin. And it's interesting. Again, the reason why I'm telling this to you, because in Mirz Hashem, you'll have boys in your family, and you want to know what they're supposed to be doing. You want to know what your husbands are doing. So men, little boys, when they're bar mitzvah, they start putting on film 2 months before bar mitzvah as a training. Not earlier, because being that film is such a holy object, has Hashem's name in it spelled out, Yud Kei Vav Kei, you have to conduct yourself in an appropriate way when you're wearing film. And little children, young children, they're not responsible enough. So we wait till bar mitzvah. But you can't put it on bar mitzvah and start then because it's going to be difficult. So we're given a 2-month time period to train ourselves how to put on the film. So the Rebbe said the 2-month period, they still shouldn't put on the second pair. But from bar mitzvah, they should put on the second pair. A few years later, in the 1980s, the Rebbe said, and now it's time that the second pair should be started even 2 months earlier. I'll explain a little bit how that changes. But what I really want to explain first is what is the difference between two tefillin. One of them is called Rashi's tefillin, and one of them is called Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. You know who Rashi is. Everybody knows who Rashi is. Who's Rabbeinu Tam? Rabbeinu Tam is actually Rashi's grandson. And he had a different opinion of how the tefillin have to be written. And I'm going to explain the next class what the difference is. But he was the head of a big yeshiva in France. And he's one of the heads of what's called Tosfos. Did you learn about Tosfos in the Gemara class or the history class? No? Rashi Tosfos? No? You did? I'm asking. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'll bring that in the next class also. Give you what? Tosfot? Okay. So Rabbeinu Tam was the head of that yeshiva, one of the heads, and he had a different opinion. In fact, he's Rashi's grandson, and it tells the story that Rashi was holding him on his hand when he was a little child, and he pulled off Rashi's tefillin. And Rashi said, one day he's going to argue against my opinion about the tefillin.